that want to be able to watch will be able to, and Yofi. Um, okay, Rabbi Stein, there's a lot to work on here. There's a lot to explain and understand. Is that and then Zechira. And Pekidi relates to Mashiach ben Yosef and Zechira to Mashiach ben David. And these two stages are stages of the Geulah that happen one after the next. By the Geulah of Mashiach ben David, which is the Zechira, this is where full redemption has occurred, and everything that is negative about Galus is completely rolled back, and we are back to the way that it should be in a world that is mitukan, that is fixed up, that is the way that it is supposed to operate. Right now we are living and existing, subsisting in a world that has a lot of things wrong with it. We explained in significant detail all of the things that are wrong with Galus. The Ramchal also told us that when the Pekida happens, the first of the Kilkulim, the first of the problems of Galus begins to roll back. And the first problem of Galus is that the Shefa, that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is inspiring into the world, that bracha that Hashem has given, is not working out. It is being expressed, but it's not being shared, it's not being delivered. The pipelines are broken. So the power station is still generating electricity, but like the wires are fraying and like swinging to the wrong places. It's all miswired. Nobody's getting the power that they're supposed to be getting. Things are broken. During the time of Pekida, there's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the great electrician, comes to begin to reattach the wires, and we begin to feel that. That is what we feel in Pekida to a certain extent. The rest of the problems of Galus are not resolved in Pekida, but they do begin to be resolved to a certain extent in the time of Pekida, and then they roll out slowly but surely. He points out that we saw this last time, that kasher nishlam achibur ha'zeh ha'echad lo yosef od lios kamo ad zechira. It pauses. There's this. It begins, and then like there's this halting that happens shortly afterwards. Like it begins, and then it's like, something amazing is happening, and it's like, ugh, and then it stops. It doesn't continue. It's stopped in its tracks. It says, "Va'al ken kazu ki eshev b'choshech." I'm sitting in the darkness. Misham v'hala Hashem early, and then Hashem will provide light for me. Ba'achris hazam, at the end of, it says, "Va'od abinchal kol ha'inyan azaheged." I'm going to explain all of this to you well. And then he says as follows, drawing the connections between the eventual Geulah to the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. He says, "Nimsa shezeh zman ha'echad haya b'Mitzrayim le'isha kasav bay vayar elikim es b'nei Yisrael." That this occurred in Mitzrayim, that Hashem saw b'nei Yisrael, and then he explains the relation between Elokim and Ekia, Asher Ekia, which we're not going to go through again. But then he says, "Al ha'pekida nemar," on this stage of Geulah, it says, "Pakoi pakadti asa," that Hashem has remembered us. Now, in Hebrew, the word Pekida and Zechira both mean remembrance. They both reference memory, but they are totally different connotations from Chassid. It says, "V'loi amar peked ani eschem." Didn't say, "I remember you." It says, "Peked pekadati."
That's the code. That's
right.
The secret code.
That's the secret code.
Yeah.
One of 5 secret codes.
One of 5.
One of 5.
There were 5. I thought this was the big one.
This was the one from Mitzrayim. The Pirkei der Blazer points out that each of the Golios, Mitzrayim, and then the 4 that happened subsequently, which is Babel, Prasamadai, Yavan, and Edom, have Geulah that are related, and there's a lot to speak about here. We're not going to do it. I'm giving you a nugget. There's a lot to bring on this Nakuda, that each of the Geulas is related to one of the, what you said in Yiddish, the end letters. Batiyat Safiyat. Mem, Nun, Pei, Tzadik, Chaf. That there is a Geulah of Pei, that's Pakoi Pakati. But each of the Geulas has something to do with one of the.
Are there only 5?
Only 5.
No. And there's no pay. You said pay has to do with Mitzrayim, and there's no pay in benching.
Yes.
So what's the relationship to benching?
A lot. A lot. Yeah. That's we learned that in Shulchan Aruch, that there's no pay-sufficient benching.
Yeah, I learned it from Shimon.
Right. That's so he says, V'loi omer poked ani eschem. It doesn't say I am remembering you. It says ki kvar hayazeh. You already remember. Pakod pakati. I've already remembered. It's happened already. It says v'zechira asita, but the zechira is still going to happen. That hasn't happened yet. It says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, pakod pakati eschem. I've already done the pakita. Zechira hasn't happened. You're in the middle. It says Moshe yon yoda shadayin lo hayazman the zechira. Since Moshe Rabbeinu knew that it wasn't yet time for the zechira, that they were still in the middle. It says vade al kain hayamamayim lo leches. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu refuses to go. He says, Rabbanu Shalom, the beginning has happened, the Zechira isn't happening yet. So why are you sending me? Well, you guys want. It hasn't, it's not time yet. So why are you sending me?
Well, they say that's why the Jews didn't believe him also. So they knew it wasn't time yet. It wasn't that they just didn't want to believe him, but they knew it wasn't the time.
Right, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Abraham Avinu, it's going to be 400 years. Not a question, it's 400 years. That's what it's going to be. The Rambam actually goes with that. The Rambam says that. Shkoyach, clean it up.
Abyssal Torah.
There we go.
More than
Hold on. Get a hug in and. Hold on. You know where the gloss is. What?
This is
drinking a lot. There we go.
Oh, it's the Geulah.
Yeah, that's okay. You know where the glasses are.
And I'm having more just out of friend with you.
I'm trying to remember recent when we were studying for the name Pasha.
Yeah.
There's the psukim that say Pakod Yifkod Etchem. So there was something about that was very similar to what you just said.
Yes, Yosef says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take it time. Yes, Pakod Yifkod Etchem. You're going to take my bones out with you. It's the same lashon. It's the same lashon. That's called the Pekida. Yeah.
But it doesn't say remember. What's the use of the word there?
Pakod is remember. Always means remember. You found this by Sarah as well. Hashem Pakod es Sarah Hashem.
Safari, that doesn't use the
What did I say in Safari?
notice.
God should take notice of you.
Because he doesn't remember.
Yeah,
He's just
he
like,
doesn't forget.
he'll pay attention to you.
Right. So it means bring attention. The truth is, there's a lot to say about what the notion of memory is in general. That memory means heightened attention, because if you don't know something, then how do you remember it? Memory is an interesting thing.
It's also like remembering to remember, because Pakod Yifkod.
So,
remember to remember you.
Well, so that double phraseology that is biblical tautology. You found throughout the Chumash, but there's drushes to make an order that some of the Sfarim do. But nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu is refusing. He doesn't want to go to Mitzrayim. Doesn't want to take the Jewish people out because the Pekidas happened, but Zechira hasn't. It's not time for Zechira. It's going to be hundreds of years before redemption is supposed to happen. So he says, "Va'amar hein lo ya'aminu li." They're not going to believe me. Why? He says, "Va'az yeshiva HaKadosh Baruch Hu." Then Hashem says, "V'zelach ha'ois ki anochi shalachticha." Let me give you a sign so that they know that I sent you, because they're not going to believe that this was a religious redemption. They're going to think that this is some political uprising. Meaning God shows up and says, God is redeeming you, and they know that it's not time for that. They're going to say, you're a nut job. Not that they don't want to be redeemed. They should. They want to be redeemed. But like, who the heck are you? Why are you showing up here? What's going on here? We know we're in it for the long haul. I mean, we don't see a way out. There's no salvation here. It says, because if not for things being fixed up, you wouldn't be sent at all. It says, because one cannot awaken the love until the time has come. Now, this is the famous Gemaras at the end of Maseches Ksubos that were part and parcel of the religious anti-Zionist movement. There were people that were opposed to Zionism for secular reasons. I mean Jews and non-Jews, that were very opposed to the resettlement of Eretz Yisrael by the Jewish people for a lot of different reasons. But there was a very firm objection to it, and the firm objection was what's referred to as the Shalosh Shuvos, the 3 oaths. So the pasuk says in Shirashim Mishpati Eschem B'Nos Yerushalayim, I make you swear 3 oaths of the Jewish people. One of them being that they would not go to Eretz Yisrael without permission, meaning that they wouldn't have a national movement to go back to Eretz Yisrael. That Geulah has to come from Hashem, because the attempt to achieve Geulah without HaKadosh Baruch Hu inviting it is audacious and inappropriate, and one doesn't do these kinds of things. Chas v'shalom. To be ma'or the ava, to like we explained, you have the kid that's in rehab, right? You have a kid who's done terrible things and he's in rehab, and then he tries to play on his parents' emotions to get him out, but he hasn't fully recovered. He hasn't been rehabilitated. So that's very painful for the parent to have to say no again and again. How much you have to be ma'or the ava until the right time has come. Meaning until you're cured of.
Wasn't it obvious, especially to the religious at the time of the state of Israel? It wasn't, the state wasn't really brought to you by religious folks. It was non-religious. So
Right.
It was obvious that, my point is, why was there an argument that this could be some type of, we're trying to make Geulah? They weren't trying to make Geulah, they're just trying to farm and be socialists on you know what I mean?
Right.
So why is there that religious argument that you said, the full argument of that those folks were they weren't trying to do it. They're just.
The question is, do you support them, or are what they're doing fundamentally wrong? They're Jewish. Yeah, I mean they're Jewish, and they are establishing a Jewish state in the land of Israel. That's awesome.
But they are saying that it's not religious.
They're Jewish though.
But it doesn't happen.
That's like the difference, right? They're Jewish.
Okay.
So do you support that, or do you rally against?
So any Jew that's doing that is in and of itself.
And the question is, do you support it financially? I mean, or is what they're doing an Avera? Is this an Avera? Is it, and not only is it an Avera, is it a dangerous Avera on a national level? That this is inappropriate. And we have cases that are bound throughout the Chumash and throughout the Midrashim of people that attempted to settle Eretz Yisrael inappropriately. The Gemara discussed that they were Bnei Ephraim that 30 years before Moshe Rabbeinu showed up, decided that it was already time to leave Mitzrayim, and they tried to leave and they all died. I mean, they attempted to leave Mitzrayim and they failed. Total abort mission. Everybody, you find later on in the Torah that after the Meraglim, Baruch Hu says to Meraglim, okay, you'll die in the desert, and the whole generation is going to die in the desert, and your children will go to Eretz Yisrael. And then there were a whole group of people that said, no, we want to go to Eretz Yisrael now. And they went up, they climbed up the mountain, and Amalek shechted them. You have a whole group of people that the Mapilim, they died trying to get to Eretz Yisrael. And Baruch Hu said no. Meaning, to attempt to do this inappropriately is disastrously dangerous. The argument that Zionism was a mistake, that this entire institution of Zionism was inappropriate and wrong, to a certain extent is the more obvious argument. Now, from our perspective now, Baruch Hashem, I think we can conclude that Zionism was Baruch Hashem absolutely Ratzon Hashem, that this is what the Baruch Hashem wants. Now, those that still argue that maybe that's not the case.
What does that prove?
That it's been successful.
Yeah, I've been there.
Meaning,
I guess.
we haven't died trying. Like we've actually settled the land of Israel and built the state.
Well, it was the light after the darkness in 1948.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like the fact that
So
the
those,
state
those religious
Right.
maybe something
Yeah.
they would argue maybe that even what's going on now, right? This is because it's not the right time.
so I
that's
think.
why.
By the way, I think we would all agree that it's not the Geulah Shleim,
Of course.
right? Where are we in the process of Geulah? So that's what we're going to learn. This is what the Ramchal is handling, because what we're going to discover is that we're somewhere between the Pekida and the Zechira right now. Meaning, the beginning of Geulah has happened, but it's a halted process. It's like a flash and then it stops.
Lightning. And then the
There's
light.
clarity, and then it's like, and then it disappears.
Yeah.
And then like you take like 5 steps forward because you have like
Flash.
you see it, and then now you're back in the darkness,
Yeah.
right? And this is what's happening. This is what's happening right now to Klal Yisrael right now, in Eretz Yisrael especially, but throughout the world. Is that we have this flash of lightning, it's like something's happening, and then it's like we're still there. It's not like we're being blown up and thrown into gulls. Like we're there physically. We still have control of Eretz Yisrael, but the darkness is relentless. Flashes of lightning and then radio silence. And that's the world of the Kiddush. We're going to get there. But he explains as follows. He says, I want to explain to you, he says, a whole bunch of psukim in Shir HaShirim that will illuminate how this process operates. Now, just very briefly, Shir HaShirim is written by Shlomo HaMelech, right? Shir HaShirim is written by Shlomo HaMelech. Shir HaShirim is also, when do we learn it? When we read Shir HaShirim? Pesach, right? Friday afternoon, that's true.
Right?
But Shir HaShirim is deeply connected to Pesach, connected to Shabbos in general, but deeply connected to Pesach. Many people have the minhag. This is the minhag in the Blumenthal family for as long as I stay awake after the Seder is to read Shir HaShirim after the Seder. So, if you do it on Friday, it gets a little quicker. But Shir HaShirim to read Pesach time, that is the love song, the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people, talking about Geulah. That's effectively what it is. But there are many, many, many phrases in Shir HaShirim where Shlomo HaMelech is encoding the process of Geulah, of which he was living at the end or at the height of that particular arc of Geulah. Meaning the story that began with Yetzias Mitzrayim peaks at Shlomo HaMelech. That's what the psalm referred to as the full moon of Jewish history. That's where all the light that is being shined on the Jewish people is being reflected. Shlomo HaMelech is at the apex of that.
15, right?
Right. 15 generations, right. That's Levana B'Tiara, that's the full moon. And then after that, it kind of wanes significantly. But he says, let me explain. He says, Hinei Kosov, in the 5th paragraph of Shir HaShirim, the two characters are the female and the male. Right? The female is emblematic of the Jewish people, male is HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the story. Ani yeshen v'libi er, I'm asleep but my heart is awake. This is what she says. Kol Dodi Defek, which is the name that Rav Soloveitchik gave to his book about the return to Eretz Yisrael. Kol Dodi Defek, the voice of my beloved is knocking. He's knocking at the door. The Rosh Hashanah is knocking. So he says, we know that the Rosh Hashanah is still, so to speak, the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence is still tethered to Yerushalayim. On that, the pasuk says, "V'libi er," my heart is awake. That to a certain extent, in that place, Golus hasn't overwhelmed the ability for a Jew to experience godliness. V'hu hanikra ani, and that is what is called ani. Ani, which is what the Vilna Gaon explains. She'amar by ani yishen. I'm asleep, v'libi er. There's a sense of identity that's asleep, but a sense of emotionality that is awake. And that's true in Yerushalayim, and that's true within the Jewish people as a whole. But there's an ani yishena, me, I'm asleep, but v'libi er, but I'm feeling a sense of emotionality, of the ability to connect, not with an identity, but with an emotional relationship. Now, I'll share something magnificent with you, if I can find it. Yeah. This sefer, which was recently reprinted, the Ikvas HaYira, is one of those farm that, like, nobody knows, and I only know this because I have a band that pointed me in this direction. This is like a very kind of connoisseur sefer. This sefer was written by Rav Avram Elia Kaplan, who was one of the brightest luminaries of the last 150 years that burned very bright and died very young. Died at the age of 32.
Very
No.
But another one.
Yeah,
This is like
100 years before him.
100 years
Avram Eliyahu Kaplan. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Hildesheim, meaning the yeshiva in Germany, the first rabbinical school in Germany. That was founded by Azrael Hildesheimer, and then Rav Hirsch, and then Rav Avram Eliyahu Kaplan, and then after he was nifted, the Shudei Eish of Yaakov Yichel became the Rosh Yeshiva until the Holocaust, and then the yeshiva was destroyed. But he lived a very short and very illustrious life. He had, I believe, one son that ended up making Aliyah, became very close to a cook in the 30s, like in the late 20s, early 30s. But he writes a hesped, which, if you understand the world of Europe in the 20s and 30s, you'll understand how, to a certain extent, this was like a very gutsy thing to do. He gave a hesped for Theodor Herzl. Now, he was educated in Slobodka, was close to all of the Rosh Yeshiva in Eastern Europe. It was well known to be a brilliant Talmud Chacham. And he gives a hesped for Herzl. Herzl, who also died very young. Herzl was, I think, 44 when he died. The two major hesped, Rav Kook, of course, gave a major hesped, but this is the second major hesped. This was said over in Tels, in the yeshiva in Tels. In 1929. Sorry, 1919. 1919, Tafresh Ein Test. So he says about Herzl as follows. Hu lo lamdenu Torah Moshe. He didn't teach us Torah. Hu lo limednu halacha ve'agada. He didn't teach us halacha ve'agada. Didn't teach us any of those things. He didn't teach us Jewish wisdom or Jewish ethics. He never got an education in all of this. Theodor Herzl had no Jewish education. Totally, nothing Jewish. He was raised in the world around him. Where all of these things were absent. Didn't have a Jewish education at all. He was not privileged to have any of this. He says, but he taught us two words. Two words. That in all circumstances, up until this point in time, we didn't have the guts and we didn't have the capacity to say these two words. He taught us two words. And they are, Ivri Adonai, I'm a Jew. It says Theodor Herzl taught us to be Jewish, meaning to identify as a Jew. Today, when people talk about how you identify, nobody identified as a Jew. They were Jewish, but it wasn't their identity. It was Ani, my Ani, my Anochius. I'm a Yid. That was Libya. My Yiddishkeit is internal, but it's not external. I mean, it's the way that I dress and the way that I speak, but it's not who I am. I'm a Yid and a proud Jew, meaning with the same pride that a German said I'm a German, a Jew should say I'm a Jew. That's the world that he's talking about here. That didn't exist until Theodor Herzl. That's what the Ramchal is speaking about. Ani Yeshena. The Ani is a. What's called the fake? That there's the voice of my beloved is knocking. He says that when the Jewish people are thrown into this tremendously powerful and overwhelming darkness, and at the end where the darkness is ever increasing more and more. And when we have distanced ourselves from the source of all things in the greatest distance possible, at that point in time there has to be an awakening. It has to happen. There has to be some kind of remembrance. Al-Kain Amar Kolda the fake. Then Hashem is knocking, that's the key. Ani yeshena, I'm asleep. My Jewish identity is gone. V'libi er, I'm a Yid, I'm a Pintel Yid, right? But I'm a South African, and I'm an American, I'm a Canadian, I'm a European, I'm an Australian, whatever it is. I'm not a Jew. Somebody wakes up in the middle of the night and says, "Who are you?" I'm a Yid. It wasn't in that place. There has to be an awakening, a pekid. It says, "V'akol holech el makom echad," and everything flows to one place. Ki lo yibah pekida rak ba'or hachachma levad, because pekida can only come through the wisdom of chachma, the light of wisdom, which we'll explain in a moment. So and since chachma is that which is illuminating, al kain lo ye'ira ela rak kamay me'achareha. It can only illuminate that which comes behind it. V'zah soy hu pei kuf daled. This is Kabbalah that we say here, which we're not going to explain too much now. He says this is the sort of pei kuf daled, the word pakod, which is ribua, which is the square of Ein Beis, the name 72. That's the gematria of Peked and the relationship to Ein Beis. Now, the Shem Ein Beis, there are different names of Hashem. There's the Shem Ein Beis, the Shem Mem Beis. These names of Hashem are all related to different aspects of the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with the world. And we're going to come back to this idea of the Shem Ein Beis a little bit later. It's relevant to this expression. Maybe we'll speak about it at Shabbos a little bit. This is the name with which the Jewish people left across the Yam Suf. That's the Shem Ein Beis. There are 3 psukim in Parshas B'Shalach that all have 72 letters in them, and those 72 letters in each of those 3 psukim is connected to the name, to the Shem Ein Beis, the name of 72 words, each of them 3 letters. All of this is Ramazan. I mean, these are hints and gematrias, but that's not what it means. What it means is something significantly more illustrious and far more profound, which we're not going to refer to now. But he says that just know that there's something that the Pekida comes from a very, very high place. Even though it is experienced as this flash of lightning, where it comes from is very, very high. It says, Bina ta'ir bizman hazechir, but Bina will happen at the time of Zechir, and we're going to explain what this is in a moment. It says, Ki loy hi levada, ela hachachma v'habina yachad, derech pneihem, v'loy me'acharem v'hu zachar. That in order for Zechir to happen, there needs to be both Chachma and Bina together, and we're going to explain this in a moment. There's gematrias and Rosh Hashanah that he's referring to here, which will explain some of the idea before we get into it. This is ve'emes. We're going to see another 3 lines, and then we'll explain. So ve'emes built ya Chachma loy nishadam. Without the Chachma, there's nothing. Kol sheken b'chitas hash'arim she'ena b'lada. The opening of the gates cannot happen without it. And this is all hinted at in the vowels kamatz and patach. Like the kamatz, versus for Ashkenazim. He says, Al kain b'kochav v'me'ir nasa b'kida asos v'zeo pischi li achasi, open for me. That's the end of the pasuk, right? I need to share the air called in the fake, and then it says pischi li achasi. It says v'dalatarim ledal esya shel alatal nunyud, which we're not going to explain now. Let's just give a little bit of a little bit of just an introduction to the phrases that he's using here. And this is going to be essential for understanding everything that follows thereafter. And that is that there are 10 spheros in Kabbalah. 10 spheros, and you find this in all of the Sfarim, that there are 10, they talk about them as emanations, sources of light, refractions of the will of God. All of those things are true. It's very abstract. So we'll explain it in language that me and you understand. they're divided into two primary groupings. Intellect and emotion. Every human being is comprised of these 10 spheres. And we'll talk about it in terms of business. So let's come up with an idea. Shark Tank. Let's go. Give me an idea. Anything. Pick an idea. It could be the most ridiculous thing in the world. We're gonna do this as a little exercise now.
Inventing a no hangover tequila.
Okay.
Alcohol, something. I don't know.
Excellent. An alcohol that doesn't give you a hangover. That's a great idea. Good buzz, right? Good buzz. Get all the buzz, none of the hangover.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That's chachma. That's an idea. That's an idea. It usually happens when you're hungover, or just before you're hungover, you're sitting with a couple of friends. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could admit, right?
Yeah.
Chachma, right? Chachma. Azaya chachma. I have an idea. That's called a chachma. What's bina?
Working on it and figuring out.
So bina is maybe double. Okay, so let's germinate this idea. Chachma is the seed. Bina is okay. So hold up a second. So what exactly does that look like? Okay, so we're gonna start a company, and that company is we're gonna have to market this, and we're gonna have to we're gonna have to pitch it. It's the brainstorm. Somebody has an idea, and then somebody else is, and you find different people have different tchunas hanefesh, right? You have people that are very good at ideas, but then that's where it ends. And then you have other people that they don't come up with anything, but when they hear an idea, they run with it. They know how to develop it, right? That's chachma. That's bina. Right? In general, in Kabbalah, Chachma is a masculine attribute and Bina is a feminine attribute. Because biologically, that's how it works. Right? Chachma is the seed and Bina is the germination of that seed. That's the womb. That's Bina. Das is the ability to see that coming into the world practically, to connect that to, okay, take it from the world of intellect, it's the intermediary between the intellect and the emotion. In order to bring this to fruition, there are now 7 more steps that have to occur. Now, I'm making this a little bit fuzzy because within the world of the Esesiros, sometimes you'll see people talk about Chachma, Bina, Das, that's called Chabad. And sometimes you'll see people talking about Keser, Chachma, and Bina. Chachma and Bina are always right and left, those are easy to understand. Keser is higher than Chachma. It is beyond it is primordial to the idea, it is the will that is behind the idea. That's almost impossible for us to access. We often don't know, why did I come up with this idea? I just know that I had the idea. I experienced the Chachma, I don't experience the Keser. That's much deeper to the internals of who I am. But by the Rebbe, we talk about Keser from time to time. But from our perspective, certainly, we talk about Chachma, Bina, and Das. Das is that connecting attribute. Okay, so now we have an idea. We have the idea, we've developed this idea a little bit. Now what we have to do is go through a lot of emotional and practical work. The first thing that you need to do is chesed. That's the first of the emotional spheres. What does chesed mean? So it means kindness usually, but generalizing it, it means extroverted positivity. Usually that's a good thing. Sometimes it's very negative. Pasuk refers to incest as chesed. Why is that chesed? Because it looks like you're doing something very kind, but it's very inappropriate. Meaning people can. This is the what to consenting adults in private. What's wrong with it? That's the dark side of chesed.
Mashiach comes from it.
Well, yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like it's a little
Yes.
confusing.
Very.
Yeah.
But chesed is incredibly powerful. That's the word of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu is ish chesed. He is paradigmatic of that chesed. reaching out, expansive. So we have an idea. We're going to make no hangover tequila. We've developed this idea to what kind of products and what we'd like to sell. Okay, good. Now this chesed. Chesed is you're in love with this idea. You're talking to people about it. You're pitching it. You're excellent. It needs always to be tempered with gevura. Gevura means discipline and restraint. Because what happens to chesed if it has no boundaries? You'll never say what?
You give it all away.
No, you'll just never bring the product to market. There's no boundaries to it.
You'll never finish.
You sit down with somebody
Keep going.
and you say, okay, I have this idea. We're going to make a no hangover tequila. So he's like, oh my God, that's like such a great idea. And you know what else you should do?
Plant
You
a
should-
tree.
right. 100%. Right.
And you know what else you should do?
And then we should start like, a rehab center that's sponsored by like chill. Like
people like that.
So it's those chevra that you're like, no, we're going to solve this, right? Because without the chesed, without gevura, your chesed is going to run wild. You'll never do anything, right? You'll never do anything because you'll never start anything. Because how can you start anything? There's always another idea to bring to life. So gevura is boundaries, it's discipline. If you're not disciplined about the work that you're doing, you're not going to do anything. So gevura means. And by the way, and I said this to people all the time. Someone said to me, "Okay, Rabbi, I want to start learning something." So I said, "Okay." They said, "So you should start learning this." And they start. And they're like, "Well, but I also decided that I want to do this and 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 this." And then you never finish anything. You never complete anything. You never acquire anything. So you have to start and then be disciplined. I'm going to do this. I still remember there was one of the cover in YU, my first week in YU. One of the guys in Geulah made a Sima Shas, and he said the hardest part about the Sima Shas was all of the sugyas that he couldn't look into. This is because in order to finish Shas, you have to decide, I'm going to be learning X amount of daf a day at this regularity, this is the time that I have allotted to it, and there are so many rabbit holes that I wanted to go down.
This is what keeps us from finishing every Thursday.
Right.
Every Thursday, we're like, but why this? Let's look at the commentary. And at the end, we're like, well, we're behind.
That's fine though. I learned from a wise man it's not about finishing.
Right? It's not. But if you want to accomplish something in business, for sure, you have to contain it. That's what gevura is. In Talmud Torah, a lot of it is the process, and sitting in the process is essential. But having goals means having both the love and excitement and exuberance and extrovertedness of chesed bounded with gevura. The problem is that sometimes you get people that are very gevura, very, very gevura, which is you have this idea, it's excellent, and then they'll come and tell you all of the reasons that you should minimize this more and more and more, right? Look, before you start launching your brand of no hangover alcohol, really what you should do is you should test this in 17 different markets to know if this is going to be, and then what you should do is collate all of that data, and then what you should do is submit this for peer review, and then
Before you even get.
you won't get anywhere because that tension of like you can't do anything yet. That's the middle of gevura.
Mark Cuban already thinks this is a scam.
100%.
And then you watch the show, like whenever anyone brings anything like this, he's just like, "Where's your research? This is nonsense.
Right.
Get out of here."
Yeah,
And
right.
then when another shark's interested, he's like, "Don't be interested. It's a scam."
Right. So, as I what's tiferes? Chesed and then gevura and then tiferes. Tiferes is how to balance chesed and gevura, because that's the secret sauce. You need to be able to have the right amount of chesed and the right amount of gevura. But the purpose of gevura is to temper the chesed.
That's why Ferris comes along.
What is
Correct.
it?
Tiferes is the balance between them. That's Yaakov Avinu.
Well, what does it mean literally? Like, das is knowledge.
So chesed means love. Gevura means discipline. Tiferes means beauty. Beauty, especially in the world of art, is the result of contrast. Right? Beautiful music is high notes and low notes, is sounds and pauses. Right? It's pitch and tempo, all perfectly aligned to create that musical moment. Beauty is all about balance. A beautiful piece of artwork is something that shows contrast.
Throws in the eye of the beholder.
Right. So sometimes the eye of the beholder is an idiot. Right. That's it's
They
like
can be.
so.
They
Somebody
can like a
says
black line on a white canvas and pay $10 million.
correct. So there's art and there's art. I mean, sometimes art is so abstract that it's a social commentary, and there's what to say about that as well. But that's not inherently beautiful, right? I mean, it might be art, but it might not be beautiful, and that's important to understand as well. But something beautiful is something that shows some level of tension and contrast.
There's the perfect balance between nothing and too much going on.
Correct.
And so if someone could have too much makeup or nothing at all, you're like going to have just the perfect balance.
Correct.
You know.
100%. And we all know when somebody is too much on one side or too much on the other, that lack of balance becomes obvious. Right? You see like he's trying too hard or he's not trying enough. And you see that tension. I mean, when somebody hits that sweet spot, you know it. You feel that harmony that exists. That's called difference. Okay, so now we figured out our product. We're in love with it. We've got our product. We've managed to figure out exactly how excited we should be about it and how tempered we should be with that. And that's called Tiferes. That's that point where Chesed and Gvura meet. Good. Netzach literally means victory. Victory means that now you have to go to war about this.
No show.
Moshe Rabbeinu is Netzach, right? Now you got to fight for it. You have to fight. And that process of fighting for it is understanding, well, what am I up against here? What's my competition? What else is out there? And in what way is this something that is going to be more valuable to people than something else? That's all called Netzach. It's presenting something that is victory, that's eternity. Why is this something you should care about? And that's something that a person needs to work on very, very deeply. It is from the world of Chesed, because it's about that exuberance and that excitement. But it takes on a tone that is tempered with that side of Gvura, which is, and I need to be a disciplined person in my excitement and in my conquest here. That's called Netzach. Hoy is the other side of it, is acknowledging, acquiescing, and acting with humility in the face of defeat. Is realizing, what did I get wrong? What are the things that I've messed up with? That's Netzach and Hoy. They balance each other. You have to be fighting continuously and humble at the same time. Both equally. That's Netzach and Hoy. Aaron HaKohen is Midas HaChayil. To explain like this, Moshe Rabbeinu is an expressive personality and an extrovert to the extent that other people quivered in his presence. He's chesed in a way that is overwhelming for other people. Aaron is the opposite. Aaron is so self-restricting that other people feel welcome in his presence. I mean, he limits himself. He is the epitome of making himself small. Midas HaChayil is gratitude and acquiescence. It's the world of defeat and what you learn through defeat. That's the world of Aaron HaKohen. Okay, all of this is still, there's no product in the market. This is all still a plan, right? You've gone through the intellectual stage, you've gone through the emotional stage. And now there are two midas that are left to talk about, and that's Yesod and Malchus. Yesod means bring the product to market. Ship it. Put it on the shelf. That's called Yesod. Which is why the midah of Yesod is Yosef HaTzadik, because of all of the people in Bereshit, Yosef is the one that does stuff. He does things. He is the ruler of Egypt and sustains the entirety of the known world. He does things and does them successfully. That's called Yesod. Which is why the part of the human body that is connected to Yesod is the tongue and the reproductive organs, because that is what it takes from this and brings it forth. That's called Yesod. What's Malchus?
Success.
People buy the product. Malchus is not about you anymore. Malchus is, did it work? Meaning, are people buying this thing? Is this now a successful company? You shipped it. That's your site. Malchus. Okay, are people buying? Which is why Malchus is a receptacle. It's always a receptacle. The language of the Zohar is less it doesn't have its own thing. It is the container. So meaning, if you did everything right, then Malchus happens. Now, there are parallels to this, because Keser, that will beyond Chochmah, is eventually, if everything works out well, expressed in Malchus, in kingship. Meaning the crown is represented by the kingdom, or represented in the kingdom. But that's the process by which it is developed. Now, this is true of a business, what we just did. It is true of the growth and development of a relationship. It is true of the growth and development of an individual. It is true of the creation of the world. There are 10 utterances through which Hashem creates the world. The last of them being Nase Adam, let us create man, which is Malchus, which is the opposite, meaning the end of the story of Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim es haaretz, which is that Keser that's Maamar HaGeulah. That it doesn't have a Hashem said, I'm going to create the world. It's just in the beginning of Hashem's creation of heaven and earth. That's called Keser. And then it reflects in the world of Malchus, which is, look at that. Now there's a person that can recognize that there's a king. But in the world of Malchus, it's now up to the customer. So too is the process of Geulah. There are 3 essential ingredients that the Ramchal is going to speak about over and over and over again. And they are the middle line of Tiferes, Yesod, and Malchus. What do we mean by the middle line? Because Chesed and Gevurah are right and left. Netzach and Hod are right and left. But the middle line, the Kav, middle line, is Tiferes, which is the balance between Chesed and Gevurah. Yesod, which is, to a certain extent, the balance between Netzach and Hod. Victory and humility, that is, ship the product. And Malchus, which is that thing existing.
And that's Yaakov, Yosef, and David Hamelech.
Correct.
What about Das?
So Das is in the world of intellect. That's above. That's above. But all of these things come from Chachma and Bina. Keser, Chachma, Bina, and Das. They all come from that world of intellect. But they are expressed in the world of our experience as we'll see, Yesod and Malchus. And what Ramchal is going to explain to us is that Yesod, that world of Yesod of us experiencing the product shipping and our capacity to ship the product, that product being Geulah, that's called Pekida. It's the ability to translate the ideas and emotions into a thing. It's not Malchus. The product hasn't sold yet. It's on the shelf. You put out the ads, but nobody's buying it yet.
It's the bottleneck of everything.
Right.
No
That's-
pun intended.
Say what?
No pun intended.
Exactly. Well, maybe pun intended, right? That's the world of Yesod. Yesod is ship the product. You're sending it out there. It's coming into the world, and people are excited. There's buzz around it. There's also a lot of competition. There's a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of people going, "It's a scam," right? There's a lot of people, which is the whole world of Yosef Atzadik, of people naysaying him. He's saying, "No, I have these dreams, I have these visions. I'm going to put it into reality." And like the Pasuk says, and we'll see this a little bit later, that the ikar of Yosef and Moshe ben Yosef is Vayakri Yosef Esechav. He recognizes his brothers. V'heim lo yikiruhu. They don't recognize him. He sees them. He's like, I get what's going on here. And they go, who's this guy? This Egyptian, megalomaniac, despot, ruling and ruining our lives. Like, why is this happening? Because you saw this happening. He's shipping the product, but Malchus hasn't occurred. There's no receptacle for it. It hasn't happened yet. Moshe ben Yosef is that doer. Moshe ben David is where the market is now saturated with this product. And now the world is different. Now there's no more hangovers, right? People.
Now everybody's drunk.
Everybody's drunk and having a great time with it, right? That's the word of Yesod Malchus. What he's explaining here is that, and he explains this through all of the Ramaz, is that Pekida, when you feel that flash of inspiration of the Pekida, of the ability to do, that's coming from that world of Chachma. It's like a shortcut from Chachma all the way to Yesod. But it hasn't germinated fully in Bina. And therefore it doesn't express itself in Malchus yet. It's like a guy that has this idea for this great product. And you see this with especially with tech products. You have a guy that's at this tech convention. It's like, I've got this great idea. And then he doesn't develop it. He just sits down and codes for 9 hours and puts it out on the internet, right? And then people get all excited about it. And then there's all these problems with it. And there's all these issues. Because it didn't develop. It went like a shortcut. It didn't go through the process. It came from Chachma, like a flash, all the way to oh my gosh, this is a great idea. Ship it, right? Let's go. And people are like you just broke the world. Like what's going on here? That's the experience. That's the feeling of the kid is happening. Woo, it's happening. Which in many ways was like the feeling of early Zionism. It's like, let's go do it. We're going to build the land of Israel. We're like, are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? You need to be measured and you need to be temperate and you need to be tempered and you need to take your time and think it through and work it out. And that's all true. But Pekida is that flash. It's like, I have such a great idea. Let's get it out there. And it comes with all of the issues that come when you do that. But that's the process. Moshe Rabbeinu feels exactly the same thing. Because Baruch says to them, go and tell them, we're going to go. And then all of a sudden, the work gets worse. Their lives get worse. They complain more. Paro is harsher. And then they go, whoa, hold up a second. Are we wrong about the idea? And the point is, no, you're right about the idea. That it needs time. It needs to develop. It needs to germinate. But if not for the Pekida, one could argue, the Zechira would never get off the ground. Because sometimes you need the flash for somebody to be like, that's the way we're going. Because if you don't see it, then you can't, they don't start. How many great ideas die before they even get developed to the point that you could talk about, pitching it in the world of chesed and tempering it in the world of gevura, finding balance in tiferes, competition and victory and defeat.
It seems like you only know if it's right if you're successful. So survivor bias. You spoke about those people who went to Israel before Hashem told them.
Yes.
Technically they did that. Had they been successful, we'd be talking about how, you see, they had to go out there and everyone else would have followed. But they went out there, they failed, and we're like, you see, you shouldn't have done that.
Well, but you only know when you fail.
No, you only know when
I'm saying you only know
you fail, nobody talks about it.
Right.
Like that.
No, everybody talks about how you fail. Right? But he says, but that's how it works. That is the process. That's the way that it works. And by the way, and this is how it works whenever there are major breakthroughs. Breakthroughs are like, they don't follow a set of rules, the rubrics. When somebody has a chiddush, it's the coalescing of a multitude of things that then literally break through. And it doesn't break through in an orderly, organized way. It breaks through chaotically. Innovation is chaotic. It's hectic. It's insane. It doesn't feel organized and orderly and misuda. It feels like it's like, and you see that.
Yeah, but it is orderly because it's like the creation of the world, where the creation of the world was complete chaos, and
Yes,
and everything had to fall into the perfect thing.
100%.
But of course, it did.
Right, but from the perspective of the person experiencing it,
Right.
it feels like utter chaos.
That's why we just have to trust the Hashem.
Well, because that's the point, is that from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's got the whole thing lined up. That's what we said last time, that the Pekida comes from the place of Zechira. It comes from a much higher place. We experience it as like this flash out of nowhere. Like historians will look back and say, and be able to, talk about the causes of the American Revolution, what led up to it, and why it is that these things occur. But the Hebrew that they were there, like that was not on their minds at all. They're like, we're gonna, and they did, and it worked. And if it wouldn't have, it would have been like, well, they failed.
Should try that again.
Right.
Now without Hashem.
Naughty, right? Like, don't do
Things in life like this. Too.
Right.
It's like phase 1, phase 2.
Yeah.
Fall in love,
Right.
and then you gotta get to
And
it.
then a little bit, right? Shira Shirim, by the way, is that story. Shira Shirim is that like just running after this idea, this ideology. 49 days after Pesach, we read Rus. Rus is all about discipline and obligations and responsibilities, taking things slow, figuring out the order of things. It's an orderly sefer. Say what?
Because it's phase
Correct. Which is why Shira Shirim is very Meshach and Yosef, and Rus, which is read on Shavuos, is the Yosef of David Melech. That's Meshach and David. That's the word of David Melech, which is at the end of the Yovel. It's like when everything can now settle and make sense, and there's Malchus, where it's not just like eloping. Pesach is eloping. We eloped with Hashem. And then finally we filled out the paperwork. That's called Shavuos.
Yeah, Pesach, we hit the jackpot. We
Right.
won the lottery.
Woo! Right. That's it. But and it's exciting and it's chaotic. It doesn't make sense, and you just everybody's going to sleep, and so that's what the Psukim describe. What we said in the Piyutim, Laila Kayom Yair. The nights were like as illuminated as the day. It's like that feeling when you're like head over heels, and there's no such thing as day or night or time or jobs or work, and you don't care. Like and then all of a sudden you're like, well, hold up a second, like I still need to pay rent. That's yours. Like, okay, bring it down to like that world of practicality. But that world of excitement is Pekida. And whenever there's Pekida, there's a lot of pushback there. And this is true in relationships, and this is true in people, and this is true in Geulah. And that's the Lord and the machine in it. But I think that's what we're going to get up to by the Lord and machine again. And because the next passage, Shiroshinim Latal, because it's obviously Selal is the next piece of the parasha. And we will continue next week.
Nice too.
Right.
Keeps going.
I'll wait for this.
My kids know this now.
You got it.
You in a better mood?
Always.
Huh?
It's so true.
I guess. Are you shutting it off?
Yeah, hold on a sec.